Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you how to create a flying mechanic. Be it a Superman game or a Dragon Ball game, flying in games is always fun. So before we start, I would like to thank all of my Patreon supporters for the amazing support. This scene will be made available on Patreon. So in order to set this up, we will need a couple of things and I'll link everything in the description. So we need some flying animations, and I got a cheap set of animations. They work fine for this purpose. And I'm also using some post-processing, some additional effects which I'll link in the description as well. I do want to highlight that when you import, if you are going to use the same flying animations, when you import them it tells you to install some package manager dependencies. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't install them. And if for some reason you do install them, they are going to install some package manager UI and you might need to remove that. I had to remove that anyway. It's not really a point in it being there. I think it's just something he left over when uploading the package, so keep that in mind. Anyway, let's get started. So, simple scene. I added a couple of cubes that are supposed to represent buildings here. So as you can see, they're just normal cubes, so nothing special, but it helps with the sense of scale and speed. So let's get started with a camera motor. I'm going to use my pretty much default setup here. So orbit input, I'm going to change that to hold middle mouse. Allow zoom, I'm going to turn that off. And I'm going to change the repositioning. And there we go, so small offset, nothing special, just the default. Going to make sure the camera mode is recognized. You know, I always just double check on this. So let's add our player. There we go. And as you can see, you know, this is the scale. The buildings are high, so imagine it being a city, kind of, something like that, or mountains, whatever you want. So first things first, we're going to create a new state. So I already created one, but let's create a new one. So game creator, and where is it, characters, and we're going to do a locomotion state. So it's a different approach than what I use for swimming. It might actually be better as well. Going to call it flight. Going to lock this, and as you can see I have these dynamic flight animations and they're all grouped in one, which is really nice. We're going to have entry and exit clips as well. So we have takeoff, which is going to be our enter clip, and we're going to have land on ground as our exit clip. And that's the really nice thing about these you know, about these states, is that we can add these things. I really do like that. So we're going to use idle a couple of times. So in place, idle is going to be used for idle, so as you might imagine. But in place idle is also going to be used for airborne middle. Let me drag this out a tiny bit. There we go. So we're going to use this here as well. Then we have down, so in place down for airborne down, in place up for, well, airborne up. For run, we're going to use the boost animations. So boost up, where is boost up? That's going to be for running. And boost down is going to be for down. Boost forward is going to be used for forward. Then we're going to do the same thing here with the running. So run forward again is boost forward. And we have, I think we have right and left here as well, right? So we have boost left, and that's run left, forward, and I'm just going to drag this in as well for run left general. And yeah, you can, reuse the same ones a couple of times. As you can see, there's not that many animations in this, but considering its price, it's not bad at all. So boost right again. Forward as well. Now we don't need backwards in this case, but we do need that for our idle states and our walking. So in place right is going to be walk right and walk right forward. There we go. And we have a back here as well, I think. Let's just do the left first. So in place left, walk left, left forward. So yeah, this is a lot of animation stuff. I'm going to use them for, I'm pretty sure there was a back here somewhere. There we go. Backward, walk forward. Can't really remember what I used for, I think it was front. There we go. Walk forward. So I'm not going to set up any dashing things. We don't have a right backward, so I'm just going to keep those the same. Walk left backwards. Pretty sure we set up most here. Run forward. Yeah, I think I set up everything I wanted to set up. Might have missed one, but we'll figure that out. We'll see when it happens. So cool. We have our locomotion state. So it's called flight. So let's make sure we use that. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to set up the flying mechanics first, and then we're going to set up the running mechanics, because the running mechanics will be dependent on if we are in flight state, yes or no. So can run has to be turned off. Default run speed 4 is fine. These values will be important a bit later on, so good to keep in mind. So let's add an empty here and let's call it flight. There we go. And we'll be adding a couple of triggers here. So first trigger, another trigger, another trigger, and another trigger. So we have 4 in total right now, and we need one more actually. There we go. Cool. So this first one, I'm going to be using the same button as jumping, but it will be in a hold state. I think that kind of makes sense. So on timeout of spacebar, and obviously we'll need some conditions. This will be mouse down, and it will be the right mouse, mouse up, and right mouse as well. And then here, mouse down left and mouse up left as well. So these will be the triggers for going up and down basically. All of them need conditions as well. So yeah, a whole set of triggers. So these first conditions, let's actually give them appropriate names. So I'll call these flight state conditions. A bit of a long name, but at least we know for sure what it is. So we're going to be adding a clause here, and then create 2 sets of actions. Now this clause is going to be dependent on a bool. So I have a flight bool here. I'm going to remove that and just re-add it, just to make sure you can follow along. So we'll call this flight. It will be a bool and everything. And by default, it's going to be turned off. Cool. So this variable is going to check, are we in flight state, yes or no? So we'll start off by comparing it to yes, and well, let's set up these other actions first. So I'm going to do a change state here. Let me do state, there we go. So if we're not in flight state, long pressing the spacebar is going to put us in flight state. So let's look up flight. There we go. And yeah, we can keep all of this exactly the same. That's completely fine. We're going to do a variable bool. So we're going to turn flight on. So if we're not in flight state, so this is the else, we're going to be turning on flights as a bool. We're also going to turn off the player feed IK. When we're in flight state, it just gets some weird results if it's turned on if we're in flight state. So good to keep in mind. Then next we're going to set up some additional properties. So we're going to be setting up property of the player, and we'll be turning up his run speed. So running is going to be increased by 10, and basically running will be flying in this case. And we need flying to go a bit faster than the default 4. 4 is just really slow. So that's why I'm cranking this up. You can increase this, decrease this, whatever you want, but just make sure there's something here because we'll be going back and forth. So for now, you know, you can copy over 10, you can do 15 as well if you want it to be a bit faster. It's up to you. And we're going to do character property again, and we're going to change the fall speed. So our fall speed is going to be set to 0. And yeah, that's it. So we're not going to be changing anything else. So no gravity or anything like that. And we'll basically copy over all of these actions, reset, and just, you know, do the opposite. So flight is turned off, IK is turned on, run speed is set back to 4, and the fall speed is set back to -100, and that's the default flight speed, fall speed. So let's try this out and see what happens. So if I jump once, you know, nothing happens. If I hold the spacebar, we'll go in this flight state. And as you can see, we can actually hover around already. Now, if you're using different animations and, you know, he's not up that high and it's just a bit lower, keep in mind that these were already set up, so I really didn't have to do anything. But if you are going to use different animations, make sure that you still have the root transform position Y baked. That's quite important. So that's the, you know, the height basically. So it needs to be a bit higher, and will be higher than that because you know, we're doing this in a jumping state basically. So already going up, and then we're activating flying, and yeah, we'll be a bit higher. So it's a nice nice hover state basically. And the reason I'm doing it like this is because I've used Dragonball Kakarot as an actual inspiration, and the nice thing about this is that you basically still stick to the terrain with the default flying hover state, which is something I really do like. So let me actually demonstrate what I mean. So, you know, just moving around the mouse is not really going to do much. We'll, you know, we can change, still change the camera, and it's not really going to change anything. And I personally do prefer that. Oh wow, God, this is slow. But basically, if we're, you know, off the terrain, and maybe 10 was really too slow. It's almost twice as fast as the default run speed, but it seems incredibly slow when you're in this flying state. And I'm going to try to approach the edge here. I should have made it a bit smaller maybe, but we're almost there. And if there's no terrain below us, so you'll see we're reaching the end of our terrain here, we'll still actually be, flying. So we don't actually need the terrain, we'll still hover, and it all looks good. In reality, we're actually constantly falling here, but because we changed those animations, there's no difference between if we're above the terrain or above nothing, basically. So pretty good start. Now let's set up the next steps. And the next steps is basically going to be flying up. And we'll be comparing to the same bool. So are we in flight mode, yes or no? And the reason for that is if we're not in flight mode, I don't want these buttons to do what they do. And I've tied it to mouse down here, but you can just, tie it to whatever you want, obviously. So up, in, and up, out. Bit of a weird naming, but it makes sense to me. So let's copy this over, paste it in here as well. And we're not going to set up anything else here. We just want something to happen if this flight variable is set to true. That's the idea here. So for up, in, what we're going to do, so if we are flying, we're going to be changing another property, and should have just kept it as we already were there. And this property is going to be gravity. Now 3 may be a bit much, but we're basically going to be, flying up. So we're not literally flying up, but gravity is pulling us up. If we are letting go of that right mouse button, gravity is just going to be set back to 9.81. Now this doesn't mean we're going to fall down, it means we'll stay in place. And that's because the default gravity is always minus 9.81, and we're achieving flying by changing the fall speed. So that's how we're actually, flying, because we're not actually falling anymore at a certain rate. So that's why we're basically hovering. By changing gravity, if we press mouse down, we'll go up because there's a different type of gravity, and then if we let go again, the gravity will be back to normal, so we'll stay in place. So that's what we're truly doing here. Now for these next parts, we're going to be doing down, in, and down, out. And the idea isn't all that different, but we can't adjust gravity to have a different effect or anything like that. We actually do need to change the falling speed here. So let's go copy over those conditions first, because these are all going to be the same. And then we're copying over a property. And what we're going to do here is we're not changing gravity, we're changing fall speed. And I'm going to do, I don't know, minus 30. That's fine. And the nice thing here is as long as we keep the mouse down, we'll keep falling basically, but it doesn't look like we're falling, it looks like we're just hovering down. And as long as we keep the mouse button down for gravity, we'll keep floating up. So that's kind of the idea. And when we let go, it's going to be back to 0. So it seems a bit complicated maybe, but it's in reality it's actually really simple, and we're not actually altering that much, and that's the nice thing about this, we don't have to. Now let's try this out. So if I press right mouse and left mouse now, nothing happens. If we're going in flight mode, now as you can see I'm constantly going up, which is really nice. And we can move forward as well, so we're actually, we're not bound to just staying in the idle state. And as you can see, if we're going completely down, we'll keep hovering, and that's kind of the idea. I really do personally like this. And then if we hold space, we're back in in our walking mode, and yeah, you know, if we jump off, we're falling, and we can activate flight as well mid-air. So pretty cool, pretty yeah, I personally like it. So now let's set up running conditions as well, because we do need those, and those are going to be a bit different than just, you know, turn off running, turn off running, turn on, turn off, as they'll be dependent on if we're flying or not. So we can call it run, even though it alters flying as well. This is going to be a key hold. Yeah, there we go, on key hold. Wow, didn't see it. And we're going to use left shift. There we go. We'll have some conditions for this. We'll need another trigger, and this is going to be a key up, and again left shift, and you can just toggle between this by pressing L a couple of times, makes it go a bit faster. Left shift, there we go, and these will just be simple actions. So let's go to our running conditions. Can run, stop run actions, there we go. So these are our can run conditions, and as you might have guessed, these are again tied to the same variable bool here. So, you know, are we flying, yes or no? And this time we'll both get some actions. So the actions here will be really simple. If we're not flying, all we're doing is player can run, and that's it. We're not changing anything else. We're doing the same action here if we are flying, so can run is going to be turned on, but we're going to add a wait here. So wait, and I don't know, 4 seconds, and then property again, run speed, and I'm going to do 20. Now basically what we're doing here is we can run, and our run speed was set at 10, I think, but if we are holding this button for 4 seconds, we'll go into a boosted state, so we'll fly faster. And again, I just took my inspiration from another game that had it like this, and I actually really do like this. You know, it's I don't know, I think it's quite a clever mechanic, and I really like the way they did that, so I thought I'd use that. So yeah, that's what we're going to do, and we'll add some post-processing as well after we try this out. And then next up we need our cancel action. So what's going to happen? So first things first, we need to cancel these first actions, and these actions are these. Now the reason we need to cancel these actions, and we can't just turn off can run by itself, which we'll need to do as well, so I'll copy this over, is because this wait 4 seconds is still being still active. So if we let go, this will still happen. So that's why if we let go, we need to cancel those actions first. Then can run will be turned off. We'll need to change the run speed back as well. And that was 4. And there we go. Was it 4 or was it 10? I'm not really sure. We'll try this out. You know what? I'm just going to turn these into conditions just to be absolutely sure. So let's rename this. Don't want to mess it up, so can run actions. Stop run action conditions. Wow. There we go. So yeah, I should have renamed this. Wow. There we go. So sorry about this, but I'm just going to make it conditions just to be absolutely sure. So we have the same variable bool. If we are flying, yes, then we're dragging in these actions, so we'll set it back to 10. And I'm going to duplicate these actions, and if we're not in flight mode, we're going to set it back to 4. So a bit more complicated than how I initially added, and I'm not sure it's necessary, but just to be entirely sure, I'm going to do it like this. So at least we'll prevent some weird transition where we're, flying at 4, 10, somewhere in between. So just to be sure, I'm going to do it like this. Cool. So let's try this out. So we can run, and as you can okay, I made a mistake here. So can run conditions. Now that's actually set up correctly. Am I doing this right? Oh, this should be on timeout. Sorry about that. So the trigger on key hold should be on timeout. There we go. That's better. So if I hold the button, we can run, and if I let go, we're back to walking. I'm going to long press the space bar, and if I hold this button, we're flying at a speed of 10. As you can see, it's faster. And then after 4 seconds, we're getting a boost, and we're flying even faster. So yeah, pretty cool. We can go up, and yeah, some better animations might help, but this was pretty much all I could find, really. We can go down. And yeah, I mean, it all works perfectly fine. Now, in order to really give that sense of, that sense of speed, I'm going to add some post-processing effects, and I'll add the link in the description for what I'm using. The setup is pretty much the same, but it gives us a couple of additional effects, and some of them are just, well, perfect, really. So on our camera, we're going to add a post-process layer, and we need to tie it to a layer, and I already had one post-process. If you don't have one, just add a layer and just call it whatever you want. You just need to make sure it's tied to this. I'm going to add some anti-aliasing as well, just to make it a bit smoother. Cool. So yeah, we need to set that up. That needs to be on the camera, and then we can create a new empty here and call this flight post-process, and this needs to be set to the same layer. Now we can add a volume, make it global, create a new profile, add override, and I'm going to be using blurring, I think it was radial blur. There we go. And yeah, it's becoming a bit blurry like this, and I personally like this. It gives the sense of speed when you're actually going fast. And we need to, oh, that's one too many. There we go. And we need to add another effect, and that's screen speed lines. There we go. Now, if you are using the same post-processing effects, make sure you also install the samples package. Where is it? It's this one. It includes some textures, so let's lock this. It includes some textures for speed. I'm not really sure where it was anymore. Noise, there we go, speed noise. And if we check the camera here, yeah, we're not seeing anything, and there we go. Something like this. So it's a nice effect. It really adds a bit to the, the sense of speed, which is pretty cool. And yeah, in scene mode it looks weird, as you can see. In game mode it's actually not weird, so that's why we need to turn this off anyway, so it's fine. So let's turn this off and then go to run. Can run conditions, so let's unlock this. And after those 4 seconds, when our speed is a lot faster, we're turning on these post-processing effects. So let's copy this over and go to our stop run conditions and make sure these are turned off again if we let go of our shift key. So cool, we can actually add this in the run just to keep our hierarchy a bit cleaner, as they are being used together anyway. And let's try this out. So we're holding this for a bit and then we're going really fast, and I personally do like that it all becomes blurry like this. I think it's pretty cool. It gives this, I mean, it really does give this sense of speed, and especially with those added lines, I think it's yeah, it's pretty nice. So that's it really. I mean, there's not much else to it. As you can see, it's something that you could use for flying, like Superman, Dragon Ball, whatever, but you could also use it for a jetpack, as it actually would function really similar. I personally really like this approach that we're actually in a state where we hover above the ground, and when we go forward, we just follow the terrain basically. I really like how that was done in that Dragon Ball game, so that's why I'm using that process. So that's it really. Pretty simple. Hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.